5 things you should never give people, even if they ask. Stoic mindset. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize a difficult truth. Not everyone who asks deserves to receive. Not every request should be granted. Not every demand should be met. And not every person should be given access to the most valuable parts of you. The Stoics understood this long before the modern world existed. They knew that kindness without wisdom becomes weakness. Generosity without boundaries becomes self-destruction. And a life spent constantly giving away what matters most eventually leaves you with nothing for yourself. Many people spend years wondering why they feel exhausted. Why they feel unappreciated. Why they feel used. Why they feel invisible. The answer is often simple. They gave away things they should have protected. Not money. Not possessions. Something far more valuable. Today, we're going to explore the things you should never give people, even when they ask. Because some things are too important to surrender. And if you stay until the end, you'll discover the one thing that destroys more lives than any other, yet millions of people hand it away every single day without realizing it. Before we begin, subscribe to Focus and Conquer. This channel exists for those who want strength instead of weakness, discipline instead of excuses, and wisdom instead of confusion. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Now let's begin. The first thing you should never give people is your inner peace. Most people don't lose their peace. They surrender it. Every day. Sometimes for an argument. Sometimes for a criticism. Sometimes for an opinion from someone they barely know. Imagine carrying a beautiful glass of water across a crowded room. Your goal is simple. Deliver it safely. But everyone around you keeps bumping into you. Some do it accidentally. Others do it intentionally. The question is not whether people will bump into you. The question is whether you'll spill the water. That water is your peace. And the crowd is life. The Stoics understood that other people will always have opinions. They will criticize, judge, mock, misunderstand, disappoint, and sometimes betray. You cannot stop that. But you can stop giving them power over your emotions. There is a story about a philosopher who was publicly insulted by a man who hated him. The man shouted, mocked him, embarrassed him in front of a crowd. Everyone expected the philosopher to become angry. Instead, he simply smiled and continued walking. Later, someone asked him why he didn't respond. The philosopher replied, "If a stranger tries to hand me a gift and I refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The answer was obvious. The person offering it. The philosopher nodded. The same is true of insults. That lesson remains powerful today. People can offer you anger. They can offer you negativity. They can offer you disrespect. But you don't have to accept it. The moment you react emotionally to every criticism, you place your peace in someone else's hands. And once that happens, they control you. Think about how many hours people waste replaying arguments in their minds. How many nights they lose sleep over comments made by strangers. How many opportunities they miss because they're busy proving themselves to people who never mattered. Your peace is too expensive to trade for temporary emotions. Protect it. Guard it. Value it. Because once inner peace is lost, everything else becomes harder. Decisions become emotional. Relationships become strained. Progress slows. And life feels heavier than it needs to be. The Stoics believe that peace is one of the highest forms of wealth. Not because it can be purchased, but because it cannot. It must be cultivated, protected, earned. And once you possess it, you should never surrender it for the approval, criticism, or behavior of others. Yet there is something even more dangerous than losing your peace. Something that people surrender so often they hardly notice it happening. Something invisible. Something that quietly determines the direction of an entire life. And that is where our next lesson begins. Something invisible. Something that quietly determines the direction of an entire life. The second thing you should never give people is control over your decisions. This is one of the most common mistakes people make. They allow family, friends, coworkers, strangers, and society to become the authors of their lives. They seek permission before every move. They seek approval before every dream. They seek validation before every decision. And eventually, they wake up living a life they never truly chose. The Stoics warned against this. Not because they believed people should ignore advice, but because they understood a simple truth. Advice can guide you. It should never govern you. There is a difference. A very important difference. Imagine a ship crossing a vast ocean. Many people on the shore offer directions. Some mean well. Some are jealous. Some are afraid. Some simply don't know what they're talking about. If the captain changes course every time someone shouts from the shore, the ship will never reach its destination. The same is true of your life. There will always be voices. Voices telling you what career to choose. What dreams are realistic. What risks are acceptable. What goals are impossible. If you listen to all of them, you'll spend your life moving in circles. There is an old story about a young sculptor. From childhood, he dreamed of creating magnificent statues. His hands possessed rare talent. His imagination was extraordinary. Yet every time he shared his dream, people discouraged him. His relatives wanted him to choose a safer path. His friends told him art would never provide stability. His neighbors laughed at his ambitions. Slowly, doubt entered his mind. Years passed. The dream faded. The sculptor accepted ordinary work. Life became predictable, comfortable. But something inside him never felt complete. One evening, while walking through a town square, he saw a crowd gathered around a stunning statue. People admired its beauty. Children stared in amazement. Travelers stopped to take photographs. A sign beside the sculpture revealed the artist's name. It belonged to someone who had once trained alongside him. Someone with similar talent. Someone who ignored the opinions he obeyed. The sculptor stood there in silence. Not because he envied the artist, but because he finally understood something painful. He had not failed because of a lack of ability. He failed because he handed his decisions to people who were never meant to make them. That realization haunted him. And it should make us think as well. How many dreams have died because someone feared disapproval? How many opportunities were missed because someone waited for permission? How many extraordinary lives became ordinary because people followed the crowd instead of their conscience? Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that it is impossible to live according to the opinions of everyone. The moment you try, you lose yourself. Someone will always disagree with your choices. Someone will always criticize your direction. Someone will always think they know better. That is life. The goal is not universal approval. The goal is alignment with your values. The Stoics believe that character matters more than popularity. Truth matters more than praise. Purpose matters more than acceptance. And when you understand this, something remarkable happens. You stop asking everyone what they think. You begin asking yourself what is right. You stop chasing approval. You start pursuing excellence. You stop living for applause. You start living for meaning. There is tremendous freedom in that shift. Because approval is unpredictable. One day people cheer for you. The next day they criticize you. If your confidence depends on their opinions, your confidence will constantly rise and fall. But when your confidence comes from your principles, it becomes far more stable. Far more powerful. Far more difficult to destroy. Remember this. Listen to advice. Learn from experience. Seek wisdom from others. But never surrender ownership of your life. Because at the end of your journey, you will live with the consequences of your decisions, not theirs. And if you give people control over your choices, you may one day discover that you've spent years building a life that belongs to everyone except yourself. Yet there is something even more valuable than your decisions. Something people will gladly take if you allow them. Something that can never be replaced once it's gone. And it may be the most precious resource you possess. Your time. And that is where our next lesson begins. Your time. The third thing you should never give people is unlimited access to your time. Money lost can be earned again. Opportunities lost can sometimes return. Possessions lost can be replaced. But time is different. Once it leaves your hands, it is gone forever. Yet every day, people give away their time as if it has no value. They spend hours in pointless arguments. Hours listening to gossip. Hours entertaining people who contribute nothing to their growth. Hours worrying about problems that don't exist. And then they wonder why years seem to disappear so quickly. The Stoics viewed time as life's most precious possession. Not gold. Not fame. Not power. Time. Because everything else can be recovered. Time cannot. There is a story about a successful merchant who spent decades accumulating wealth. His business flourished. His properties multiplied. His bank accounts grew larger every year. People admired him. They envied him. They called him successful. One day, while traveling through a small village, he met an elderly man sitting quietly beneath a tree. The old man appeared peaceful, content, completely unbothered by the world. Curious, the merchant asked him a question. "What is the most valuable thing you own?" The old man smiled. "My remaining days." The merchant laughed. "You own almost nothing." The old man nodded. "Exactly." Then he pointed toward the horizon. "When I was young, I chased things. Now I protect moments." Those words struck the merchant deeply. Because despite all his wealth, he suddenly realized he had spent most of his life trading time for things he no longer cared about. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves that life is shorter than it appears. Not to create fear, but to create urgency. Urgency to live wisely. Urgency to focus on what matters. Urgency to stop wasting precious hours on trivial distractions. Imagine waking up every morning with a small bag containing a limited number of gold coins. Each coin represents 1 hour of your life. Every conversation costs a coin. Every activity costs a coin. Every distraction costs a coin. Would you spend those coins carelessly? Would you hand them to people who do not value them? Would you waste them on meaningless pursuits? Of course not. Yet that is exactly what many people do with their time. They allow others to consume it without purpose. There was once a young man known throughout his town for being helpful. Whenever someone needed assistance, he agreed. Whenever someone wanted his attention, he gave it. Whenever someone requested a favor, he accepted. At first, people praised him. They admired his generosity. But over time, something strange happened. His own goals stopped moving forward. His dreams remained unfinished. His projects gathered dust. Years passed. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, he visited an old teacher. "I don't understand," he said. "I spend all my time helping others. Why does my life feel stuck?" The teacher handed him a bucket filled with water. Then he poked small holes in the bottom. Slowly, water began leaking out. "What do you see?" asked the teacher. "A bucket losing water." The teacher nodded. "That bucket is your life. Every unnecessary commitment is another hole." The young man finally understood. Being kind does not mean becoming available to everyone. Being generous does not mean sacrificing your purpose. Being helpful does not mean neglecting your own growth. The Stoics believed that every person has a duty, a responsibility to develop their character, to fulfill their potential, to contribute something meaningful to the world. You cannot do that if all your time belongs to everyone else. This doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means becoming intentional. There is a difference. Selfish people care only about themselves. Wise people understand balance. They help others without abandoning themselves. They serve without becoming servants. They give without becoming depleted. They know that boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are protection. Protection for their energy. Protection for their purpose. Protection for their future. Think about the people who constantly demand your attention. The people who appear only when they need something. The people who create drama where none exists. The people who consume your hours but add nothing to your growth. The Stoics would ask a simple question. Are these relationships investments? Or expenses? An investment makes your life richer. An expense drains resources without providing value. The answer often becomes obvious once you ask the question honestly. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Despite ruling an empire, he guarded his attention fiercely. He knew that every unnecessary distraction pulled him away from what truly mattered. The same principle applies today. Your future is built by what receives your attention. Your goals are built by what receives your attention. Your character is built by what receives your attention. Protect it carefully. Because every yes to something unimportant is often a no to something meaningful. Every hour wasted is an hour unavailable for growth. Every distraction accepted is progress delayed. One day, you'll realize that life was never really about how much time you had. It was about how wisely you used it. And that realization leads us to another thing people constantly give away without understanding its value. Something invisible. Something powerful. Something that determines how others treat you. Your self-respect. And that is where our next lesson begins. Your self-respect. The fourth thing you should never give people is your self-respect. Because once self-respect is lost, almost everything else begins to crumble. Confidence weakens. Boundaries disappear. Standards fall. And people begin treating you exactly how you allow them to. Many people believe respect is something others give you. The Stoics understood something different. Real respect begins within. Before the world respects you, you must respect yourself. Before others value you, you must value yourself. Before others honor your boundaries, you must honor them first. There is a painful truth many people spend years avoiding. Some of the deepest wounds in life are not caused by enemies. They are caused by repeatedly accepting treatment that violates your worth. A person insults you. You stay silent. A person manipulates you. You tolerate it. A person repeatedly disrespects you. You make excuses for them. Over time, something dangerous happens. You begin teaching people how to treat you. And they learn quickly. There is an old story about a young lion raised among sheep. From the day he was born, he lived like them. He ate with them. Walked with them. Feared what they feared. And because he had never seen another lion, he believed he was a sheep too. Years passed. Then one day an old lion appeared. The sheep scattered in terror. But the young lion remained frozen. Confused. The old lion approached him and led him to a calm lake. "Look," he said. The young lion stared into the water. For the first time, he saw his reflection beside the old lion's. They looked the same. In that moment, everything changed. Nothing about him had physically changed. His strength was already there. His power was already there. His potential was already there. What changed was his awareness. Many people live exactly like that young lion. Not because they lack value, but because they have forgotten it. They remain in relationships that drain them, friendships that use them, environments that diminish them, all because they no longer recognize their own worth. The Stoics believe that dignity is not something to be negotiated. It is something to be protected. Not with arrogance, not with pride, but with quiet certainty. The certainty that your value does not depend on someone else's approval. Imagine a beautiful castle standing on a hill. Strong walls. Solid foundations. Carefully guarded gates. The castle remains secure because not everyone is allowed inside. Now imagine the gates are left open. Anyone can enter. Anyone can damage it. Anyone can take what they want. Eventually the castle falls into ruin. Your self-respect works the same way. Without boundaries, people will often take more than they should. Not because they are evil, but because human nature tends to test limits. And if no limits exist, they continue pushing. There was once a talented craftsman known throughout his town. His work was exceptional. His skill unmatched. People admired what he created. Yet he had one problem. He feared disappointing others. Whenever someone demanded more work, he agreed. Whenever someone requested impossible deadlines, he accepted. Whenever someone underpaid him, he remained silent. Years passed. His resentment grew. His passion disappeared. The very talent that once brought him joy became a burden. One evening, an elderly mentor visited his workshop. After listening to his frustrations, the mentor asked a question. Why do you expect others to value something that you do not value yourself? The craftsman sat quietly. The mentor continued. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you teach others what your worth is. That lesson changed his life. Slowly, he began setting boundaries. Respectfully. Firmly. Without guilt. Something remarkable happened. Some people left. But those who remained treated him with far greater respect. The Stoics would not be surprised by this. Because when you respect yourself, you naturally attract healthier relationships. Healthier opportunities. Healthier environments. People may not always like your boundaries, but they will understand them. And those who truly value you will respect them. Remember this. You can be kind without being weak. You can be compassionate without being exploited. You can be generous without being taken advantage of. Strength and kindness are not opposites. The strongest people often possess both. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the greatest empires in history. Yet he never believed strength required cruelty. He believed true strength came from character. From integrity. From remaining faithful to your principles even when pressured to abandon them. That is self-respect. It is the ability to look in the mirror and know that you did not betray yourself. Not for approval. Not for acceptance. Not for comfort. Not for fear. Because the person you must live with every day is not your critics. Not your coworkers. Not strangers on the internet. It is yourself. And when self-respect disappears, inner peace often follows. But when self-respect remains intact, it becomes an unshakable foundation beneath everything else. Yet there is one final thing people give away. One thing more valuable than peace. More valuable than time. More valuable than self-respect. It is the hidden force behind every achievement. Every dream. Every transformation. And once it is surrendered, life begins drifting without direction. This final lesson may be the most important of them all. Because it determines the person you eventually become. And that is where our final lesson begins. The final thing you should never give people is your purpose. Because once purpose is lost, direction disappears. And when direction disappears, life becomes a series of reactions instead of intentional actions. Many people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they abandon their purpose at the first sign of resistance. They trade their dreams for comfort. Their calling for convenience. Their mission for approval. And little by little, they drift away from the life they were meant to live. The Stoics understood that purpose is one of the greatest sources of human strength. A person with a clear purpose can endure extraordinary hardship. A person without purpose often struggles with even small obstacles. There is an ancient story about a stonemason working beneath the scorching sun. A traveler approached him and asked, "What are you doing?" The mason replied, "I'm cutting stones." Further down the road, another mason was asked the same question. He answered, "I'm earning a living." Then the traveler met a third mason, covered in dust, sweating heavily, working just as hard as the others. When asked what he was doing, he smiled and said, "I'm building a cathedral." All three men performed the same task. Yet only one understood the deeper purpose behind his work. That purpose transformed everything. The labor felt different. The struggle felt different. The sacrifice felt different. Because purpose gives meaning to pain. Without purpose, difficulties feel unbearable. With purpose, they become part of the journey. Many people today are exhausted not because they work too hard, but because they work without meaning. They move through life chasing goals they never chose, following paths they never questioned, living according to expectations they never created. And eventually, they feel empty. Not because they lack success, but because success without purpose feels hollow. The Stoics believed that every person has a role to fulfill, a responsibility to develop their gifts, to strengthen their character, to contribute something worthwhile during the short time they have on earth. When you surrender that responsibility, you surrender a piece of yourself. There was once a young man who dreamed of becoming a writer. Every evening he filled notebooks with stories. Every spare moment was devoted to his craft. Writing brought him alive. But over time, people began discouraging him. Friends laughed. Relatives questioned his choices. Others warned him that failure was inevitable. Slowly, he listened. He stopped writing. He chose a safer path. Years became decades. One evening, while cleaning an old closet, he discovered a dusty notebook from his youth. As he turned the pages, memories flooded back. Dreams. Ideas. Possibilities. The person he once hoped to become. For a moment, he felt something heavier than failure. Regret. Not regret for trying and losing. Regret for never trying at all. The Stoics feared this kind of regret more than hardship. More than criticism. More than failure. Because failure teaches lessons. Regret often lasts a lifetime. Think about how many people reach old age carrying invisible burdens. Not the burden of mistakes, but the burden of abandoned dreams. The burden of untaken chances. The burden of a purpose they traded away for comfort. Do not become one of them. Your purpose may not always be clear. It may evolve over time. It may require patience to discover. But once you find it, protect it fiercely. Because many people will try to pull you away from it. Some intentionally. Others unintentionally. Their fears become your limitations. Their doubts become your obstacles. Their comfort becomes your temptation. The Stoics would remind you of a powerful truth. The crowd is often wrong. History proves this repeatedly. Every meaningful achievement began with someone willing to walk a path others did not understand. A path others questioned. A path others criticized. Purpose requires courage. The courage to continue when progress feels slow. The courage to remain committed when nobody is watching. The courage to keep moving forward even when the outcome remains uncertain. And that courage creates extraordinary lives. Imagine standing at the end of your life. Looking back over every year. Every choice. Every opportunity. Every challenge. What would matter most? The opinions of strangers? The arguments you won? The possessions you accumulated? Or the knowledge that you lived according to your deepest values? The knowledge that you honored your purpose? The knowledge that you became the person you were capable of becoming? The answer is obvious. And that is why purpose must never be surrendered. Not for approval. Not for comfort. Not for temporary pleasure. Not for fear. Protect it. Nurture it. Commit to it. Because purpose turns ordinary existence into meaningful living. And now, as this journey comes to an end, let's remember everything we have learned. Because peace is the foundation of strength. Never give away control of your decisions. Because your life belongs to you. Never give away your time carelessly. Because time is the one resource you can never recover. Never give away your self-respect. Because people often treat you according to the standards you set. And never give away your purpose. Because purpose gives meaning to every challenge you face. The Stoics understood something that modern society often forgets. A successful life is not built by acquiring more. It is built by protecting what truly matters. Protect your peace. Protect your time. Protect your dignity. Protect your purpose. And most importantly, protect the person you are becoming. Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you are shaping your destiny. One choice at a time. One habit at a time. One decision at a time. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to Focus and Conquer. Join the growing community dedicated to Stoic wisdom, mental toughness, self-discipline, and personal mastery. Every video is designed to help you become stronger, wiser, calmer, and more resilient in a world full of distractions. And remember this. The strongest people are not those who control others. The strongest people are those who control themselves. Guard your peace. Value your time. Honor your purpose. Respect yourself. Trust your path. And never trade what is priceless for what is temporary. Until next time, stay focused. Stay disciplined. Stay unconquered. And continue your journey to become the person you were born to be. Welcome to Focus and Conquer.